even those Hispanics were born and raised, corn-fed here in Minnesota, they're being, treated differently, slightly differently. So it's like setting the tone for their relationships with business entities, with their partners, with the government, and so on, and saying, no, these people have the right to start a business. Just because they have a Flores or Rodriguez last name doesn't mean they're, they don't belong here.
Today on LawNext, I'll speak with Inti Martinez-Alemán, a lawyer in St. Paul, Minnesota, whose firm, the Ciba Forte Law Firm, was just recognized during the Clio Cloud Conference with the Raisman Award, which recognizes firms that have demonstrated excellence and innovation over the past year. His firm was recognized in particular for excellence in client service, and we'll learn more in today's episode about why that was. This is Bob Ambrogi, and you're listening to LawNext, the podcast that features the innovators and entrepreneurs who are driving what's next in law. Before we get to today's conversation, let's hear from the sponsors who generously support LawNext. Practice Panther, the practice management solution that helps attorneys automate their workflows so they can have more time to practice law. Being productive is easy with Practice Panther. Check out their software and sign up for a demo at practicepanther.com/demo. Now let's get to our interview. So, Inti, welcome to LawNext.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you for having me. And it's an honor to be talking to you today.
Well, it's an honor to be talking to you, especially in light of the recognition that you got this week. And just to elaborate a little bit more, in giving this award, Clio says that the Excellence in Client Service Award honors a practice that has successfully implemented a client-centered approach to running their firm that is better for their clients in their business. And I want to get, of course, to talking about your firm, but you've got kind of an interesting backstory too. You started practicing law in Honduras, right?
Yes.
And then made your way to the United States. So how did that happen? What brought you here?
Yeah, for sure. So I was born and raised in Honduras, 0 to 18, and then I came to college to school in Western New York. And it was a great opportunity, 4 years at liberal arts college. I got my degree. I decided I didn't want to stay in the U.S. I wanted to go back to Honduras. It was very intentional to go and try to do something good for my country. So I went back to Honduras, studied law, practiced law for about 5 years. Then things got extremely dangerous, a lot of violence, organized crime, as you might have seen in the news in the last 5-8 years.
Yep.
So yeah, in 2013, I moved back to the U.S. and started from scratch and went back to law school. Got a 2-year JD, and thankfully they gave me credit for that 1 year. For 1 year, so I got to save there. Then I knew I didn't want to work for anybody. So right out of law school, opened my own law firm, serving the Spanish-speaking population here in the Twin Cities in Minnesota. First, I didn't know what areas of law I was going to practice. I was pretty broad, but very quickly, Bob, I saw that there was a huge need in civil, business, and employment matters. Stereotypically and typically, lawyers who serve Hispanics tend to practice immigration law and family law and criminal law. And that's great. There's a lot of need there. But the market was, and still is, pretty saturated. And I wasn't too fond of any of those areas. So I practice these other areas and absolutely love it. Mondays are my favorite day of the week. So that's after Friday, frankly.
Yeah.
But I really love what I do.
Yeah. I want to just jump back to the law school part of it again, because for a second, just because it's interesting, and I don't know that a lot of people, I don't know how many people realize this or not, but the fact that you had a law degree in Honduras was not translatable to practicing law in the United States, right? I mean,
Correct.
you had to go back and get further education and essentially go
That's
through a
right.
whole licensing here. Is
That's
that
right.
is that is that something that you think needs to be reformed in some way?
Oh, entirely. I think a 1 year LLM program with the hardcore 1L classes are sufficient. My second year of law school was just so dull. I was just there just to do the work and to be done. And 80% of what I do every day, I learned out of law school, outside on the streets,
Yeah,
practicing law with clients and so on. It's only 20% is what I actually use in law school. Let's say legal research and writing, ethical rules. Okay, a few rules here and there of civil procedure, but the rest, I'm sorry, I learned those along the way. So I think there are about 12 to 15 states who already do what I propose, which is a LLM degree, Master's of Law degree. 1 year, you're done. You go and practice law.
yeah.
But Minnesota, unfortunately, is still stuck in the 1900s, and it prohibits that, unfortunately. But we're trying to change that. Actually, we have a foreign trained lawyers movement going on here, and requesting the Board of Law examiners to change that rule.
Great. So when you started your practice, you saw, I guess, a need
Yeah,
among those in the Hispanic community for somebody
yeah.
kind of specializing in their needs. What can you elaborate on that? What was the need that you saw, and how did you want to serve it?
Yeah, for sure. So, because I was practicing different areas, I did one or like a couple family law cases. I did one immigration law case for a friend, and it was super easy, but I hated it because it's just not for me. So, what I noticed was two things. One, that I liked these employment related or business related or civil related cases. It was just like, because it had to do with assets, businesses, and jobs. So that's one thing, that's more like my affinity to it. But then from the other end, because it's a two-way street, was having seeing that Spanish-speaking clients or Hispanics generally
Yeah.
being misused, and abused by the system, quote unquote. What I mean by the system is the government, state level, county level, city level, federal level, their employer or business partners, a bunch of people throughout the system and throughout society. And so I'm like, one is for the lack of advice or knowledge, and two, even if they knew how to do things, they were taken advantage of, including banks. It's a big problem, being discriminated against for being Hispanic, or assuming that just because you're Hispanic, you don't have the right to have money.
Right.
And so just yesterday, a client called me, returning client said, and this guy, 7 figures every year. And he tells me, my bank keeps harassing me, and bank manager, as to why I have so much money. Like he thinks I am, dealing drugs or something.
Right.
And, and, and all this stuff. And this would have never happened if he was, an average Minnesotan,
Yeah.
stereotypical Minnesota. So stuff like that I keep noticing, people's assets, businesses, and jobs being trampled on just
Yeah.
because of people's background.
Yeah. And do you think the fact that you are of Hispanic origin helps you better understand their problems and needs?
Yeah, that's a good question, Bob, because language matters, but language just takes you so far. So you can use an interpreter, you can use, you can learn the language even, but if you don't understand the culture, there will be a mismatch or a disconnect. So
Right.
yes, to answer your question, I believe that makes a heck of a difference. I'm able to understand some nuances that people wouldn't otherwise wouldn't understand. For example, the immigration portion of it. Even though I don't practice any type of immigration law, but all this is intertwined, and it goes back to that. Even those Hispanics were born and raised, corn-fed here in Minnesota. they're being, treated differently, slightly differently. So it's like setting the tone for their relationships with business entities, with their partners, with the government, and so on, and saying, no, these people have the right to start a business. Just because they have a Flores or Rodriguez last name doesn't mean they don't belong here.
Yep. So you started your firm in 2016, I believe.
Correct.
And are you a solo practitioner, or are there other lawyers in your firm?
I am a solo practitioner. My wife is also an attorney. She's not licensed here in Minnesota, and it's related to what we were talking about earlier. She's an attorney back home in Honduras, got an LLM degree. She could be licensed in one of those 12, 15 states that I mentioned. But right now she does all of our legal research and writing. We work together here at Seba Forte, and but for attorney purposes, I'm the only licensed attorney here.
And did you have a sole practice when you were in Honduras, or what was your practice there?
My late mother and I, we co-owned the law firm, and so we were business partners, and it was a family-owned law firm. Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm sorry to hear you lost your mother. So you were not new to having a law practice when you started this practice in St. Paul.
That's correct, and that helped a ton because there's a boatload of transferable skills.
Yeah.
Client relations, for example.
Yeah.
That's the essence, I think, of how to deal with a clientele.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Is at what point in starting your practice did you have this notion that you wanted to, do things maybe a little bit differently than some other firms did in the way that you work with your clients?
Oh, yeah, and that was right at the outset in terms of being a paperless law firm, being, virtual ready or remote ready. Even though clients wanted to meet in person, I always gave them the option. You don't actually need to come here. And so when the pandemic hits, we just pivoted easily. Like, we didn't have to change much or anything because we were doing it already. So it was right at the outset. I was part of an incubator program, Bob. The incubator program provided me with office space, admin support, practice management software, a pipeline of clients, and a panel of mentors. This incubator program with this mentorship component helped me understand that it was so necessary to do things not like typical lawyers would, but be innovative. Throw away that box that is tying you down or that's keeping you in a state of boredom and tedious work. So yeah, and then we innovate and try new things. If they don't work, we toss them or revamp them, and so on and so forth as we go. So every day, every year, new things come up, and we learn as we go.
One of the, I guess you call it an innovation that was cited by the Raisman Award in mention in describing your firm is that you use, the way they put it is, you inject a little fun in the consultation process, offering story cards to better capture the way a client feels about their case. What does that mean? What do you do?
Yeah, so a little bit of background. So if I recall correctly, it's about 86% of potential clients who talk with an attorney experience some type of anxiety. When I saw that statistic in a seminar a couple years ago, I was like, what? Why would they be anxious? I'm nice. We're all nice. But no, I took it for granted that I talk to lawyers all day, every day. And most of my colleagues do the same. So it's like, why would they be scared about or anxious about talking? No.
You're a mean-looking guy,
Yeah, well, thank you, but no.
I'm kidding, of course.
Yeah, thanks. And then I was like, how can I make this fun but serious at the same time? So I was introduced to this concept of gamification through a program called Creative Mornings. And so gamification essentially says make what's tedious fun, still serious and formal or proper, but reduce anxiety. So that's when it dawned on me that small things like drink menu, having story cards, having a first consult tour would help people feel at ease and know what to expect in this first consultation, which for me is essential to understand the client and understand their case. And for the client to know, one, how to solve or resolve the problem, and two, to know if I'm the right guy to do that. Yeah. So story cards particularly, someone comes in after they get their drink that they chose from the menu. We give them a set of, I think it's like 80 different cards or so. So these pictures, these images are a very beautiful lake, a cabin out in the woods, a fork on the road, a sign of a target, and all these different kinds of images that we see all day, every day when we walk around the city, travel through the roads, experiences that we see. A couch, an office space, a jail, a roller coaster, all these different images. And these are photographs, not designs. And so I asked them, please choose one card that explains how your case impacts your life today. And most people are like, what the heck? And I tell them, I will tell you what this is for in a minute. So they choose one. Some people choose more, and I like it. It tells me a lot about, one, their case, and two, about their personality. Because they're willing to not follow instructions for the sake of expressing themselves better. So once they come in, I tell them, look, this is very important because I'm able to understand. They choose, let's say, a jail. They feel they're stuck. They don't know what to do. Or a roller coaster. This has been my life. Or a couch. Why a couch? Oh, because this is where I want to relax after I hire an attorney. Because this is when I will know that my case will be taken care of. So and by this time, Bob, we haven't even started the first consultation. I don't even know about their case.
Right.
But I'm learning about how they think. So I tell them, this card that you just chose helps me understand, like I said earlier, how your life impacts today, but more importantly, the same facts that you're going to tell me about your case today can impact a different person in a different way. So I want to know your makeup. I want to know how you're wired. That way I can address your issues in a more targeted and narrowly tailored fashion.
It sounds almost like a meeting with a psychologist rather than a lawyer.
Exactly. And I bring this up all the time, kind of self-consciously, saying, hey, this is no pop psychology. I'm not your counselor, but, and they just laugh and say, yeah, it was pretty weird, but now it makes sense, so.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting though, because a lot of clients, I am a lawyer as well. And I know a lot of clients almost view their initial consultation with a lawyer as a counseling session, in that they come in with a problem that they are looking to get off their chest.
Yes.
Being
heard.
Yeah, being heard. And then another visual that you use, as I understand it, is a chart that kind of helps them understand what to expect.
Correct.
During the conversation, during the consultation, and beyond, right?
That's right.
So can you tell us about that?
Mm-hmm. So we haven't chosen a proper name yet, but it's something like a first consult tour. So imagine it's a landscape. On the left, you have an ocean. Further to the left, there's a beach. Then there's a huge mountain. And then further to the right, at the very end on the right, there is a lake home with a placid lake. So you start on the left. So it's a sailboat surrounded by sharks. And it's storming like hell. And so I tell them, this is probably how you feel today. And they just start crying. Some others are like, oh my gosh, how did you know? I'm like, okay. And then, all these reactions. And then, look, set this aside temporarily. Think that you're in your favorite place. And for me, it's the beach. So that's why I chose the beach with the tiki hut and a nice, relaxing chair there. Beach towel and everything. you have a drink in hand. Everything you and I discussed today is confidential, so I give them a spiel about confidentiality. Then you see this huge mountain. This is everything, all the information about your case. I know nothing about your case. I only know this is a business dispute. But because it's so much information in 50 minutes by now, or 55, at the beginning it will be kind of rocky. And then there are some rocks in the mountain. And then little by little, we're going to be climbing this mountain of information. I'll ask you questions, you answer them. You can ask me questions, I'll answer them. And then at the very peak, Bob, you're my client, and I will have a general idea of what happened, a panorama of the land, if you will. And I will give you legal advice. I'll give you options on what we can do, and also payment plans as the need arises. And then you can make a decision either here or in your home whether my legal services are of any good to you. They're like, oh my gosh, that's, and so that helps a ton.
Do any clients ever come in and you start to go through this and they kind of look at you and say, Inti, what the heck are you talking about?
Very few, because actually the ones who, like you say, the ones who question it or kind of look kind of weirded out are the ones who have dealt with lawyers before.
Yeah.
Because they're like, wait, this is not what I signed up for. But then as soon as we start talking, they're like, oh my gosh, this is just a better system. I think that's what they convey with their facial expressions. And what they tell me at the end. So yeah, we survey them too, so that helps.
We will continue our conversation in just a moment. But first, this message. ASG Legal Tech, the company bringing innovation to the legal space with modern and affordable software solutions. ASG Legal Tech's suite of technology includes the practice management platforms Practice Panther, Bill for Time, and Mariscase, as well as online payment solution Headnote. Now let's return to today's conversation. So another facet of your practice that was cited in the award is the way you set fee arrangements with your clients.
Yeah.
So how do you do that? How do you handle fees?
Yeah, alternative fee arrangements. So we start with the ugly cousin, the hourly rates, and then some people are like, not some, almost everybody, 9 out of 10, they're like, hell no, And so they're like, is there anything else? Yes, we're going to get there. So if you don't like that, let's say it's a business dispute between partners, and there's no court case, there's no filings, nothing. They're just trying to, they're bickering about something. So I tell them, hey, I can help you out with litigation by stages. We'll do a pre-filing, pre-court type of negotiation approach in which I communicate with the opposing party or their counsel if they have one and see what we can figure out. This is for 2 reasons. 1, we're able to hopefully find a negotiation, and 2, more importantly, if it doesn't resolve, which happens to be many times it doesn't, then I already have good intelligence on this person. And I know where they're coming from. I know their strengths. I know their weaknesses. And I know the guns that they carry. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. If any. Mm-hmm. And so they're like, okay, I now charge you this amount of money for that. Then if we need to go to court, then for drafting the complaint, it will be this. Or answering if they were to be sued. If there's a motion, then this. If it's, depending on the kind of motion. Think of it, Bob, like a menu. You choose the menu. You go to a restaurant, you choose a menu. I want an entree, appetizer, and so on. And sometimes you order, and you just want more. It's like, I want to order a dessert now. I said I didn't want dessert, but I want dessert. Or vice versa. You order the whole shebang, and then say, sir, could you remove that order, please? And so as we go, we figure that out. And then another thing I also offer is a hybrid between contingency and a flat fee, contingency and hourly, flat hourly, and then flat fee. And that this latter one has been working super amazingly well. So flat fee with hourly, because let's say that same example, business bickering, I start with a flat fee and I tell them, I don't know how much litigation would cost and I can't offer you flat fee right now. Or maybe I can, but they just don't want to take it. So I said, we'll start with a flat fee, and anything related to this case, but not precisely or specifically within the scope of the representation, will be an hourly rate of this. So by the time we're done, assuming we don't settle or anything, then we already build rapport with Bob, and they already know who I am. I know who they are, and then they're okay paying the hourly rate. That ugly cousin that initially like heck no. Now it's like, sure, I trust you. You know.
Yeah. What is the span? I mean, I assume your clients span different income ranges. I mean, do they go go from low income all the way up to upper income, or what's?
I'd say from poverty line, literally poverty line, federal poverty line, up to 8 figures, 50 50. That's the span, and we're able to cater to them. Same service, but and treatment and everything. It's just that the fee arrangement is different.
Yeah. And during the Clio Cloud conference this week, there was a interview with you, and I watched that, and if I understood you right, I think one of the things you said that you did also to help your clients and to put your clients at ease is develop a virtual reality Oculus Go view of a courtroom so that you could help them understand what's going to happen. Is that the idea? Tell me about that.
Yeah. So there's a demo online, by the way. If you go to YouTube channel for Seba Forte, there's a demo for that. So so you can see visually see what that's about. But essentially, to make our clients feel at ease before going to a courtroom for a hearing or a trial, we asked them to put on these goggles and then follow the instructions. So there's, I believe it's 6 different settings. First setting, the gallery, where you enter. You sit down here and don't go past the gate unless you're told. Then you have the counsel's table. Then you have the witness stand. You have the jury box. You have the judge's desk, and so on and so forth. The bench. That way, once they come to the courtroom the following day, or whenever their hearing is, they already know where to go. They know what the etiquette is. They feel at ease. They're like, oh, this was just exactly like the VR thing you showed me, they say, like the goggles. I'm like, yeah. And so it's more of getting the client accustomed. They're already stressed out about the case. And
how did you create that or produce that?
Oh, yeah, sure. So we hired a local virtual reality developer here in town, and we got permission from the Minnesota Supreme Court. It was pretty hard to do that, but eventually we tried to convince them that this was for the good of society and the good of legal services, access to justice. We used all the arguments that we had to use, and then they said, sure. Yeah. Go and you have half an hour to come and take pictures, high definition, high resolution images to do the rendering so that you get the best shots. And so anyway, we got that done, and now we have proprietary rights to that software.
Yeah. Are there any other aspects to your client service that you think are pretty unique?
Related to that first consultation tour, Bob, that mountain of information that we were talking about, I like to break it down in 5 stages, and I mentioned it yesterday, but it's worth expanding because I think there was an audio glitch. I divide it in 5 stages. So I want to know the names of the other parties. I tell my clients, I want to know what the problem is, the history behind the case. I give you legal advice, and lastly, I quiz you. And they're like, what? A quiz? Yes. I want to know what you understood from this consultation. You will not leave this room or end this session virtually, whatever, or end the call, unless you tell me what you understood. And so these 5 stages help me understand the case better and help the client understand the case better too. Sometimes they come for a wage and hour issue, but it's not a wage and hour issue. It's something else, you know, and so on and so forth. So it's like, oh, okay, yeah. So that helps us navigate. So that's one thing. And the other last thing is follow-up. We do weekly or bi-weekly follow-ups with all our clients, telling them this is what's going on. I'd rather have them be ticked off, which rarely happens, and that I call them or message them or email them every week or every other week, than the opposite, that they never hear about me. You know what I mean? So those two aspects are worth noting. And we adjust to clients' expectation of communication. Some love texting, others love talking on the phone, others are email lovers, others are like, let's just do the Clio Connect because I feel more secure, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, that aspect of quizzing the clients at the end of the consultation is really brilliant, because again, anybody who's practiced law and consulted with clients knows that it's so often the case that you finish the consultation and you think you're all on the same page and that you understand what you've been talking about, but you only later discover that in fact the client walked away with a completely different impression, and that can really lead to problems down the road.
Exactly. Yeah, you explain clients A, B, and C, but they hear X, Y, and Z. It's like, wait, what? You know, and so I'd say 8 out of 10 times they get it and they're able to spit out easily or difficultly, but they spit out the information right. There's that 2 out of 10 times that it's like, wait, what the heck did you hear? You know, and we speak the same language, and I used very simplified legal language, so. But it's more of a 1 hour consultation, overload of information. So, yeah.
Yeah. Inti, I know that you said right at the outset that you were already, a fairly virtual firm or could operate on a virtual basis. But what has been the impact of the last 6 months on your practice and on your clients?
Yeah. If I remember correctly, in the Clio stats from a couple months ago during the pandemic or right after it started, and I think it was 81% of lawyers reported to have had a decline or their practices being affected.
Yeah.
Thankfully, we were not part of that. We actually saw a huge increase, like 30% increase in client matters, opening cases. So we are still very grateful for that, and and we've adjusted very well to that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Have the kinds of matters that your clients have been coming to you about changed because of the pandemic?
They've expanded. So same cases always, but the ones that have expanded, as you can expect, unemployment issues, employment termination, and just expansion. That's always been there, but much more now. Those two are the largest. And then on occasion, we get what are these price gouging? So business owners being accused of price gouging, so defending them before AG, Attorney General proceedings, claiming price gouging.
Yeah. Off in a slightly different direction, but we hear so much about the lack of diversity in the legal profession. Especially, diversity in terms of people of color, as well as gender diversity. But how, given that you have this practice that's kind of catering to the Hispanic community in the Twin Cities, how unique is your practice there, or anywhere really? I mean, are there other lawyers doing what you're doing and catering to the Hispanic community in that way?
Not in these areas of law. I know, like I mentioned earlier, immigration and family and criminal for sure. But in these areas of law, nobody else is doing it exclusively. They might dabble, a few cases here and there just for fun or whatever. But I've also identified 7. Let me see up here. It's like 8 to 9 other areas of law, Bob, that nobody else is doing for Spanish speakers. So I wish there was attorneys doing those areas. I won't take on estate planning or tax law or and so on and so forth, because that's not for me. I don't feel called there. Yeah. But yes, it's been a challenge to help my colleagues, particularly my colleagues and the bench as well, the judicial system, to understand that I'm not the interpreter today, when I go to court, or that I'm not the client today.
Right.
Because there's this conception that if you're Latino, you must practice immigration law. That's it. You must. If you don't, what's wrong with you?
Right.
So interestingly, we survey not only our clients, but also opposing counsel on how things went, anonymous surveys, and how can we be better lawyers and whatnot. And what we get is, in the statistics of opposing counsel, and this is relevant to your question, is I'd say out of 105 that were surveyed, I'd say about 4 were not white men. The rest were white men.
Wow.
And so I come across that all the time. So it's just a few, 4 or 5 that are not white men. So, but it's a step at a time, and we're trying to break those stereotypes apart.
Yeah. We were talking earlier in the program about these obstacles facing foreign trained lawyers to becoming licensed here in the United States, or at least in particular states in the United States. Do you think that is a diversity issue? In other words, if those obstacles were eased up in some way, would that help, allow more diverse lawyers to be practicing here?
Yes, actually, there's a huge problem of unauthorized practice law here in Minnesota, and statewide too. In U.S. Nationwide. Thing is that many, I wouldn't say most, but a good number, a plurality of these unauthorized practitioners, they are foreign trained lawyers, and they just don't. They're not up for going to law school. For whatever reason, a host of reasons I could tell you, and so opening the doors to them and having them do 1 year, not 2 or 3, 1 year, would get them out of darkness, out of the shadows, and be actually regulated by the agencies. So that's one aspect for diversity. All these foreign trained lawyers coming in, diversity. It is a diversity issue, but also it's an access to justice issue, because all these lawyers who are already serving their community poorly and committing crimes, by being involved in unauthorized practice of law, they would then continue serving legally and regulated their communities of color. So yes, it's a diversity issue, but also it's an access to justice issue.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing as you were saying that, because if these people were able to become licensed, it's going to be better for the community at large, and certainly better for the clients that they serve overall, and enable them to even serve a greater number of people. So, is there anything else about your practice that you'd like to mention that we haven't talked about here?
This is a minor thing, but I have a stand-up desk with a walking treadmill, so all day, every day, I am standing up and walking all day. So that's something that helps me stay. That's related more to wellness and practice. Work-life balance. So that's something I am very. It's one of those small things, Bob, but it just makes me so happy that I don't have to be sitting down all day.
That's great. I actually have a sit stand desk. It's an adjustable desk, but I tend to use the sit part of it much more than the stand part of it. So my heart is in the right place, but my activity level isn't always. But.
Hey, but you're a step in, so more than many other of our colleagues, Bob.
Well, it's been a real pleasure talking with you, and congratulations
Likewise,
again
Bob.
on this recognition that you got this week. It sounds like it's much deserved, and I wish you much success, and I hope you stay well on top of it all.
Thank you, Bob. I really appreciate it, and let me know if you want to connect in the future, and thank you everyone who's listening.
Yeah, well, let's stay in touch. That does it for today's show. Thanks to Inti Martinez-Alemán for taking the time out of his busy schedule to be with us. Thanks, as always, to Ben Ambrogi and his company, Populous Radio, for producing and editing our show. And thanks to all of you for listening. Until next time, this is Bob Ambrogi.